All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of The Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers at The Athletic, and today we're here to talk about the Texas Motor Speedway race, where I am currently in the Victory Lane building at Texas Motor Speedway. They have some radio rooms here. Right outside is Victory Lane, which is ongoing at this very moment. We're starting early today. I've just come back from the garage and pit road. And we're here to talk about everything that we just saw. Quite a terrible, unpredictable way to go there. Like, it's just sort of like you just think every time you thought something was going to happen, the next thing happened. So if you thought you knew what was going on in this race, I don't think you did. So I mean, where do we start, Jordan? It was quite chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. As the president of Team Chaos, I certainly was pleased. That was certainly chaotic. And I guess the question I have coming out of this is, for the last, 3-4 races, Martinsville, Bristol, Darlington, you throw Talladega in there. We've kind of talked about maybe the quality of racing, and maybe it's not to the level we wanted at, right? Today, I don't think anybody would argue that this was terrific racing. We didn't see a lot of, green flag passes for the lead. It wasn't a lot of side-by-side racing, certainly not what we're accustomed to on an intermediate track. That said, there's a case that could be made, and I would almost argue that this was entertaining because it was unpredictable. We had a dramatic finish, those kind of things. So not great racing, but entertaining, which is a little bit of a juxtaposition from the last few weeks, which is not great racing and not entertaining.
Yeah, I don't know how people are going to rate this at all, to be honest with you, because certainly boring is not what a word you would use to describe this whatsoever. There was stuff happening all the time. It was funny because, there was that moment, Tyler Reddick gets told on the restart, I think with like 90 something laps to go. All right, this could be the last restart of the race here. It was like 96 to go or something. And then there was like 5 more cautions after that. And it was just a total race of attrition. Let's talk about what we think's going on here, right? So from what the drivers said all weekend is Texas, despite the asphalt looking grayer, Texas, they say is not aging in the sense that it's not widening out, right? We know that turns 1 and 2 here, the way they were reconfigured, they can't really use like 80% of the turn or whatever it is. And if they go too high, it's dirty, it's dusty. There's a little bit of iciness with the old stain of the old PJ1 and all that stuff. And they will quickly lose traction. They will have to slow down. They will get out of the groove, whatever it is, right? And meanwhile, in turns 3 and 4, there are bumps. And the bumps are, the Cup cars are so sensitive to these bumps, unlike the Xfinity cars, which have a little bit more travel. Cup cars are so sensitive to these bumps, they bottom out. And you see people spin and suddenly wreck and all this stuff. Briscoe, sounds like, several guys did it. So
Barry, Kyle Busch.
Yeah, the Barry, exactly. Yep, exactly. So they all these guys feel like it's actually a pretty narrow track, despite it, in terms of the racing groove. Like they don't really have a lot of room to go. So when you have multiple restarts over and over again, they are all in this kill mode, where they're like, we have to absolutely go for it. And you see guys get in sort of these desperate positions where they are just trying to find the holes and make something out of it. McDowell at the end there, I just talked to him in the garage. It's like what was he, trying to do with getting down, going down as far as he could to the apron with Logano. And it's like he felt like, okay, if he gets if he allows Logano to have the inside there, Logano's on his way, right? He's charging through the field. He's got a fast car. If he gives Logano the bottom, Logano is going to move McDowell up into the bumps and make McDowell lose traction. So McDowell's like, I'm going to block all the way down as far as I possibly can, as far as I can do without like putting either of us in a like terrible position safety wise. I mean, he's like, I got to go see the replay of how far down we went. And next thing you know, it didn't work. Right. And then when Blaney passes him, he loses the control, basically. He loses the air and his car snaps around and he's done. But he was like, man, like you're just trying to go for it there, right? Blaney, meanwhile, was super pissed after the race, super pissed, because he felt like, first of all, every time, if he had taken the top, he was like, I'm not going to take the top at one point. And then he says McDowell makes him look like an effing idiot because McDowell took the lead from the top past Larson when he had Reddick behind him. And then Blaney has the top on Logano coming to that final restart, and Logano kind of shoves Blaney up just enough into the dirty stuff, and Blaney loses traction and all that stuff. And so Blaney was pissed about how the restarts went. Chastain said he was just looking for low percentage type moves that were, to try to gain spots. And they worked. He said he had no confidence in his car at all for a while. And that's where you saw them qualify and run in the back for a while. And then he said with one pit stop, they kind of switched everything. And magically, Chastain he felt like he could drive confidently again. And you saw him pick his way to the front. I mean, it was just this race of attrition where people would try to pick off spots, and they took advantage of the other ones who were making mistakes. And if you put yourself in a bad aero spot, you quickly went to the back and lost position. We saw different strategies with the two tires, and guys able to overcome track position that way. So it was just wild with so much going on.
This has become Texas Motor Speedway in this next gen era. You go back to 2022 with the tires, you go back to last year's race, and it's certainly better than what Texas used to be. Because Texas wasn't entertaining, nor was it exciting racing. It didn't have any of those elements. And again, I don't know if you would call this great racing today, but I also don't know if it matters because it was entertaining enough and it kept you like kind of on the edge of your seats of going, what's going to happen next, that kind of thing. And so it's an interesting race in that sense. And I look, and you talk about the block with McDowell there at the end of Logano. It's like Logano's the wrong guy to try to throw a block on, by the way, in that situation. Like, Logano is the worst. Logano doesn't give a damn. And he's in a situation where he's on kill mode. He's going for it regardless. And it just, I am not going to beat the dead horse again on this, but this is what makes Logano so good in these situations is when he has an opportunity to win, he finds a way. And it doesn't matter that he came into the race, this race with 0 top fives. It didn't matter any of that. It's like you put him in a spot, they are going to find a way. This is what he does. That is what this team does. They qualify poorly on a track where you can't really pass. Doesn't matter. And then you look at Ross Chastain. We need to start giving Ross Chastain some love. Like he's just turning in good finish after good finish. One, he's not qualifying well, and he's not qualifying well because Trackhouse isn't bringing great cars to the racetrack every week. They don't have a lot of speed in the race cars. And Suarez, too, to a lesser degree, but really especially Chastain. This guy just grinds out finishes every single week. And it's like, man, if Trackhouse can just find some speed, Chastain is going to be able to go do his job. And so impressive there. And then Ryan Blaney, man, like how many times this year have we said, like, this felt like a race he should have won. This felt like another race he should have won and didn't. And this has got to be what, 4 or 5 this year. It is just adding up. And you can imagine the frustration he is having because you don't know how long these opportunities are going to be there. And that's why I always say you have to capitalize when they present these opportunities present themselves, and they're getting the finishes in this case. They did not get the result though. And that has to be excruciatingly frustrating, but impressive for Team Penske. And so much, this isn't a late season thing. This is a beginning season thing. They have come out of the gate from day one at Daytona, and it doesn't matter the style of racetrack. They have been in contention just about every single week. And that is really something to see from an organization, which for the last few years has been really more of a playoff team than a regular season team.
Yeah, I mean, most everybody, maybe with the exception of Eric Jones, who finished 5th, or maybe like a Stenhouse who finished 6th. There was a lot of grumpy people on pit road. It was just like, and it's because of missed opportunities, missed chances. Larson's another one where you could say this could have been another Larson win, right? I mean, because if he's able to maintain control of the race when McDowell got past him on that restart, which I guess they just timed it perfectly, I guess. McDowell even said, "Oh no, he said Larson spun his tires," and I was like, that's maybe he did, but that's not what Larson said. Larson just said they timed it perfectly. So whatever the case may be, Larson had control of the race in that moment, and lost it. And once he did, he got enough dirty air, he was not able to regain control. So that's, you chalk that another one up for Larson in that category too, just like you're talking about with Blaney. So a lot of these top guys, this is going to be one where they look at and go, dang, if only this hadn't happened. Or take Kyle Busch, for instance, right?
Kyle Busch, throw Josh Berry in that mix too. There's been a lot of guys today who had great runs. All of a sudden, Kyle Busch is, I'm looking like, where's Kyle Busch? Oh, he's running fourth. I'm like, oh my goodness. And he's like, his lap times are really good. It's like, okay. And he's got a restart here. Like, this could be entertaining. And then, so yeah, this is a woulda, shoulda, coulda for a lot of guys today.
Well, I mean, so on the Busch point, right? Like, he is third, he moves up to third. McDowell at that point was second with this 2-tire call. So Busch had better tires than McDowell, I believe, at that moment. And, he's just, he has a chance to track him down. And instead I don't know did they say on the broadcast his tire blew, or I just thought he bottomed out. I don't think did they say he had a flat tire? Because I thought he just bottomed out. He hit the bump and bottomed out. Is that
exactly?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, the same thing that Barry did while leading. Yep. Barry for a while today, I was getting this narrative in my head. Okay, well, they've gotten in the track position because he had a 2-tire call. He and Cedric and Buescher for a while had that 2-tire call and nobody could pass them. Clean air was important, right? And he was able to maintain the track position. And you're like, okay, well, Barry on the same tire combo at a 1.5-mile track earlier this year, right? Okay, well, maybe he could do this again. Clean air, and as long as you maintain the lead, it seems like you're going to have a shot today. And then he makes a mistake, right? So it's just like, man, there was so many. And look, obviously, it's very treacherous. It's a very treacherous track. When I talked to Mark Faber, who's the executive vice president of this place, he said that he likes when the drivers say it's a treacherous track. He likes that it sounds so difficult for them. Obviously, the drivers don't like that, right? Like they want a track that they feel like they can race on and have multiple grooves and all this stuff. I mean, both Blaney and Larson after the race were pretty down on the track, right? But this is what Texas is. I don't think that we're going to see some dramatic repave or reconfiguration right now. I mean, even Larson after the race was like, I mean, let's say they repave this place, right? It's going to take 4 or 5 years then for it to start aging out enough so you can race on it. He's like, the quickest thing to do would be to make it another Atlanta, but we already have so many speedway races, so everybody would be down on that. So it's like, what do you do with this place? It's not. Byron pointed out that it's like the asphalt that they used here is not aging like at other racetracks. The color has changed, but it's not actually wearing out because this was repaved in 2017 now, and it sits and bakes in the Texas heat. But it just hasn't done anything. So it's an important market for NASCAR. The attendance was up, double digits. So I think that this is going to be a place that just stays how it is, and it'll be the annual sort of complain about Texas thing in the spring, but it's just not going to change.
No, and this is interesting. And I think you bring up the big issue for the big storyline from this weekend is I feel like Texas Motor Speedway is kind of past that point of no return. Like, to your point, like, you can't reconfigure it to a traditional 1.5-mile track because it's one, it's expensive. Two, it's going to take a few years to get to where you want it to be. And I will say, like, this doesn't race like a Kansas or a Charlotte or even like a Las Vegas, but at least Texas has an identity now. At least it isn't like it used to be where it's like, oh my God, we're going to Texas. The racing is, this is horrible, the worst. And I know you do your preseason rankings of worst races. Like, I don't think Texas deserves that low of a ranking anymore because it's unpredictable. It's entertaining in a way, and at least it has its own identity now. And the identity isn't like before where it was like pure suckitude. Like, this is actually like an entertaining, like anything can happen. And I will say, it still rewards the best drivers and the best teams. It's not like, you had a Larson up there, Logano, Blaney, you had the guys up there today who you usually see up there. And it even like it rewards a Michael McDowell who like is really good. And so like, that's not a bad thing. It's not like all of this carnage and unpredictability is leading to like wild finishes and unpredictable winners. Like, it's still leading to justified guys who are going up there and doing it. Now, that said, you still would like to see better racing. Like that's where you have to draw the line, is like, you want to see a figure out a way to do better racing. I just don't know if it's possible there in this configuration. And the track is the track at this point. It's not going to change.
So what I'm looking at here on Racing Reference is up until, so Texas has now had 45 Cup races. Its entire history, which is 1997 up until 2020, there was only 6 races that had at least 11 cautions or more. Now they've had 5 in a row. So speaking of the treacherous stuff, I mean, to your point, it's not like you're going to come here and see, oh, there's just going to be a few cautions or whatever. Like it is consistently chaotic at this point. So that is sort of Texas's brand now, I guess.
Yeah.
Kyle Larson, maybe this is the highest praise that somebody can offer. One of the drivers can offer at Texas. I believe his quote was, "Well, it's not the worst track." So,
I mean, there you go. See? I mean, there you go.
Texas is like, yeah, that's right, baby.
But think how bad Texas used to be. Like, I mean, I used to make fun of it more than anybody. Like, it was terrible. Like, the racing was bad. Everything was bad about it. But it's not terrible anymore. It's not great. But at least it's got something. And again, and it should be stated, you wrote about it again this week on The Athletic. Attendance is up. Like, we used to make fun of these guys. Their attendance was up double digits year over year. That's impressive. That is impressive at a time when some tracks are struggling for attendance right now.
Yeah, I was at the tweet up today, and one of the fans of the tweet up was like, dude, the Xfinity crowd yesterday was about what some Cup crowds were getting not long ago at Texas. So I don't know if it's the change in the date. You know, they were, 2 years ago, I believe it was September. It was like 105 degrees. It was, I don't know if you remember that I sent you the picture of like they had a fan blowing the air conditioning unit up on the concourse. Like people were falling out, right? And then they moved it to April last year, and now they've moved it to May. And I'm telling you, the weather this weekend couldn't have been possibly nicer. I mean, it was just so pleasant. And it was like, well, I mean, maybe they found a great date that works for them. As I mentioned, I talked to Mark Faber for this article on The Athletic, and he was like, we wanted to get away from football. Having a Texas race, and you're going against Friday Night Lights for the truck race. We're going against TCU or SMU, college football on Saturdays for us, and we're going against the Cowboys on Sundays in the fall. That's not a winning recipe here in Texas, right? So like he's like, we wanted to get to the spring, and remember last year too, they were very close to Coda. And so, which is 3 hours away from here. So a lot of fans had to decide between, okay, do we want to go to Austin? Do we want to go to Texas Motor Speedway? Now they moved Coda. Remember, Coda was like the 3rd race of this year. It was really, really early March. Now you got 2 full months in between them. And now fans could go to both. A lot of fans go to both. They didn't have to pick. So, even though Texas only has 1 date now, I mean, for Texas fans, there are 2 in the same sort of area. And again, it's, we could say they need to do this place. They need to do this.
They don't.
I just don't. Well, they might, but it's not going to happen.
I don't think you should. Like, I don't. You could do something to this track. I think changing it to an Atlanta is a mistake. Like you to your point, like you have too many of those drafting tracks. You have to put a stop. You have to put a cap on that. And there is no guarantees. We have seen Texas try to go through various reconfigurations. There is no guarantees that they're going to hit on a combination that is going to give them racing like you see at Atlanta or Vegas or Charlotte. Not Atlanta, but Charlotte and Vegas and Kansas. So so it's a low upside to me. And I look at this is what it is. And they have found a date that works. And I think this race is much more palatable to digest in the regular season than it would be in the playoffs, where you would have guys, the championship and everything else, like, oh my God, we're doing this again. It's a little easier to accept when it's 1 of 26 instead of 1 of 3 within a playoff round. And I think, again, this gives it some identity and separates it from other tracks in a way. And again, but we're not sitting here saying the racing is phenomenal, because it's not, but at least it's something that we're talking about in a positive way.
Wasn't this the race the first year in the next gen with all the blown tires and
2022 injury?
That wasn't the crap.
Got hurt here.
crappy ass parts race, was it? That was a different Martin Truex Jr. I can't remember when he said crappy ass parts, but
I don't remember, but this is the one where Alex Bowman got hurt, got a concussion. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just those races in my poll, I'm sure everybody remembers the Texas All-Star race with the Blaney window net, how horrible of a race that was. I mean, the race sucked, and then there was a controversy. Yeah. Both of the 2022 Texas races are the two worst races in the history of the poll. The Texas race in the regular points race got 13.4%, and the All-Star race got 11%. Out of 348 races in my poll, those are the bottom two. So for a while there, it just looked like Texas was just the absolute worst. And now, as Kyle Larson says, it's not the worst. The last Texas race was the best Texas race they've had in the poll, which is 70-something%. It's the only Texas race that got over 70%. But maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what people will think of this one. Is it's going to be a very interesting.
I am fascinated to see the number on this. I feel like we've had a lot of races this year where it's like, man, I'm really curious to see what the number is. This one, especially so.
Well, let's just go get into it right now, because we're already on the. So, Jordan, unfortunately for you, excuse me. Last week, you had a very valiant guess because you said 30% for Talladega, and I just threw out this random like 47 point something percent, whatever it was, right? And it was so close because I think it was 39%. And Big Joe Wall, who calculates the stuff for us, he says if it had been 0.2% lower, that would have been a win for you, and it would have made the season total 6-5. Instead, I'm now on a 4-race win streak, and I'm up 7-4. So you were this close to. I didn't think it was going to be in the 30s. You certainly got that. So good call there. You almost stole that one, but it was not to be for you. Anyway, so Texas races historically are, as I said, don't rate very high. What was last year was number again? Sorry, 72.9 last year, the Chase Elliott win. Okay. Then 2 years ago was 59.5. That's actually the fifth best Texas race, 59.5. So the last two Texas races have been in the top 5 out of 16 races historically in my poll. So, I really don't know. I really don't know where this is going to be. It was
sound you just heard was me ripping my guess up because I don't like it. So
this is going to be. I could be way off on this one. I don't know. But I guess I'm ready to reveal if you are.
Yeah, 1 second here, boss. All right, I am ready whenever you are.
Okay, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. I've got 62.3, 71.5. Wow. Okay, 62.3 for me, 71.5 for you. I guess it could be in the 70s, but I didn't think it was that good. I just thought,
but I don't know. Entertaining though. It was entertaining, unpredictable. And again, Texas is one of those races. Be like, oh, it's Texas. So like anything better, it's a low bar. So.
That's again, we were talking about that also, the tweet up. I think it's sort of like you go into Texas with such low expectations. If you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It boosts the number. Where like Talladega or Bristol, right? The last, some of these guys, I think Daniel Cespedes, Steven Stump, they had pointed out that this is the first time ever that my poll had been 4 straight races of 51% or under. And those races are some of the best races. You had Martinsville, Darlington, Bristol, and Talladega. They should. So now Texas is going to be above all those, I guess. But a lot of that is expectations, right? Because it's going to be, Talladega, we think we want this, and Bristol, it's going to be, we want this. And then you get disappointed or let down. You go, well, that sucked, right? That's part of it. I'm not saying that's the whole thing. So, I think it will be.
I have no idea.
above 50 at least. So we'll see.
I mean, my original guess was 65, and then I moved it. So
okay,
we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see.
Again, we talked about Jordan, like just the missed opportunities and missed chances today. Another one was Chase Elliott, because Alan Gustafson had made this 2-tire call, and I believe, I wish I'd gone back and gotten his exact quote, but it's pretty much like, listen, you got to keep your clean air here. Like you got to keep your track position if we're going to do this. Elliott tried to go on the outside and make a move for the lead when he was racing, and he just kind of bobbled a little bit. And then as soon as he lost that clean air with the 2 tires, he went straight to the back, right? Like, and he lost all his track position. Then they tried to pit early in the window because Elliott was like, "Oh, I'm getting this vibration, and we got to come in as soon as we can." As did Byron. Similar thing happened to Byron when he tried to strategy call and got splitter damage. He had to pit early in their window, and then the caution comes out, and they get trapped a lap down. They had to take the wave around, all this stuff. So ultimately, let's see, Elliott ended up finishing 16th. So nice comeback for him. Byron ends up finishing 13th. So once they were able to get back on the lead lap, that's as far as they could make it. Obviously attrition and wrecks as well, but it ruined their chances of having a good day when they had cars that, looked like they could have contended. Elliott had a really bad qualifying effort that he had to overcome, but he also, last year, had to overcome a bad starting spot and won the race. So, it's just, again, you could probably go through the whole field, and a lot of the finishers in the back half are going to be kicking themselves, whether, Bubba Wallace, right? Alex Bowman, that wasn't his fault, but Alex Bowman,
Keselowski, another bad day.
Yeah. How about Bowman, right? Like Bowman was running top 5, I think. Certainly top 10. And his pit crew had a bad stop.
Yep.
He gets mired back in the muck, and then he just gets completely cleaned out in that wreck with Allmendinger and Gregson, Bubba. Yeah, like, and that was it, right? So it's like, man, it just happens that fast where, the pit crew loses you some spots, and suddenly your day is ruined. So, so many missed opportunities, and I bet legitimately, like you said, that a lot of the drivers and teams are glad that this isn't a playoff race, because it would be as chaotic next time you come back, and you don't want that to affect your postseason hopes.
Yeah, and so I want to talk about both Bowman and Elliott there. One, you make the point about Bowman and his pit crew. I believe this is the second time this year. I think Martinsville was the other one where they had a bad pit stop, and then they end up getting caught up in something. And it's just been kind of that recurring theme for them this year, where they've had the speed, they haven't had the execution at the times, but they've looked good. And then we need to have a Chase Elliott conversation. I feel like we're having the similar conversation. Since the start of the 2023 season, the Wood brothers have more wins than Chase Elliott does, than the 19. That's crazy to think about. And that is no disrespect to the Wood brothers. That's just the reality of the situation. They have 2 wins. Chase Elliott has 1 points win since the start of the 2023 season. That's crazy to think about. And this is, again, becoming a typical, what I would associate with a typical Chase Elliott year. They run just well enough. You look at their average finish, that kind of thing, and they grind out these finishes, and that's good. And it keeps them up in the point standings, Tive, that kind of thing. Right now he's 4th in points. Okay, that's good, but that's not good enough for this team. You look at laps led this year. Kyle Larson and William Byron are 1st and 2nd. Alex Bowman is 9th. Chase Elliott, 15th. 45 laps led this year. This team should be better. It needs to be better. And on a racetrack where this is tailor-made for Hendrick Motorsports. We saw that today with the 5, obviously. 24 was up there too until they had pit road damage. Bowman was in the mix. Elliott, they needed a tire. Before that, though, they needed a tire gamble to get that track position. It wasn't like they had sheer speed. And so there's just fundamentally something is missing with this team. It's been missing for a while. Kudos to them for grinding it out and finding a way week after week to get top 10s and that kind of thing. And again, led the series in average finish last year, and that's great. But they are not winning enough. They're not leading enough laps. They're not getting stage wins enough. This team is falling short of the expectations. Now, that's a real high bar, but they're not even come close to meeting that.
Well, I mean, you see, you say that, and he's actually, I mean, you said fourth in points. He's actually tied for third in points. His two teammates are ahead of him, first and second. Alex Bowman, with his bad day, is I guess 10th now, right?
He's got 0 playoff points.
I get that. And what you're saying is correct, but it's like he does do enough to
just enough.
Like he's not going to miss the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like he's I don't know, but yeah, like everybody around him has multiple wins, right? Like Hamlin's got multiple wins, Bell's got multiple wins, Larson's got multiple wins, just this season, right? And we're 11 races in, and you would think somebody that's that high up in the points is going to be winning a lot of races, but yeah, his average finish is solid, but the laps led are very low. So I don't know if this has been added in from today yet with the laps led, but either way, he's not even, I don't think he's in the top 10 of laps led at all.
15th
in laps led. Okay. Yeah. So, I don't know what I mean, as you said, they're grinding it out. So
yeah, it's weird.
They're from an organization that has speed. So I don't.
Yeah. They're most weeks, they're at least the third, if not the fourth best Hendrick car. That's not at all what this team should be at.
Yeah. Another one that's going to be like kicking themselves is the 45 team with Tyler Reddick, because, they were going to have a top 5. It looked like for a while there that they might be in contention for the win. Early in the race, it was like actually both stage 1 and 2, when both of those ended under caution, and Reddick finished second in both those, especially stage 1. It looked like he was going to run down and take the stage win in the playoff point from Austin Cindric. By the way, get another playoff point for Austin Cindric if that NASCAR had a different call with the suspension. Austin Cindric now piling up those playoff points that he wouldn't have had anyway. I'm just saying. But yeah, like, so Reddick looked like he was going to be contention. Then he just, I guess he cut across Suarez's nose or whatever late, and he ends up settling.
Suarez couldn't move down because of the grass, and Suarez realized.
Well, he wasn't going to.
Yeah, he apparently watched the Xfinity Series race and realized that's a bad idea.
And the truck race, yeah. Yeah. So Reddick finishes 21st, but they had promising speed, and next week is Kansas. And I had asked Reddick yesterday, I was like, how are you feeling about Kansas? 'Cause remember, like last year we were talking about 2311 and Reddick, both Kansas races, and he didn't finish in the top 20 of either race, or better than 20th in either race. In 2311, I don't think got a top 15 at Kansas last year, when that was like, everybody's like, that's their track. That's next week now. So he had said that yesterday. He's like, well, I think based on our speed at Texas, will show me a lot about how we're going to run it at Kansas. So maybe that gives him some optimism. But at the same time, you're like, dang, we kind of let one slip away here. He's 5th in points, but he's only 2 points away from being third by himself in points. So, these races we're at the point, obviously, where everybody knows that. I think okay, let me back up, because I'm viewing this differently. So I was on let me tell you the story. So I was on Sirius this week, right? And I'm thinking, McDowell in particular, he was our guest, and I'm like, he's probably looking at points now at this mark of the season, because it's seeming increasingly likely that there's going to be multiple spots available for drivers who don't win. And I couldn't even finish the sentence and get that sentence out of my mouth before he was like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, oh, you think there's going to be like a rash of winners? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't think there's going to be, it's not going to stay this way at all. And so he's like, I only think there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 spots available, and you're going to have to be so far up in points. So he's like, I'm not thinking about points at all, which we clearly saw today, right? Like, he was not racing like a guy who's like, well, if I do this, I could maybe point my way in, and, there's going to be a spot, for the guy that's 14th in the standings or whatever. He's like, I'm going for it because I think I can win, and I have to win. And so, but I think that we see all these guys race like that. Like we got to the end of the regular season last year and we said, man, if only Kyle Busch had done a little bit of points racing, if only Ross Chastain had done a little bit of points racing, Michael McDowell, threw some big blocks at Talladega, stuff like that, like to try to, yeah. And it's like, man, you look back and you say, but there would have been, but they're not like everybody's going for it. They're I don't think anybody is, and maybe it's the wrong strategy. I don't know, but nobody out there that I see is like, hey, let's just collect the points. Like, you think Carson Hocevar is just going to collect the points? Like, it's like everybody's in this crazy sort of win mode where it seems like to them nothing else matters, and they're just like, I can erase everything. I can change my entire fortune. I can take all this pressure off my team if I just win one race.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they go for it. Don't you think? Like, doesn't it feel like that?
I agree. But I think they have to, though. And I think Michael's right when he says you can't points race, and you kind of got to assume that there's only going to be 1 or 2 spots left for, non-winners, because that's kind of how it's averaged out the last few years, especially in the next gen era. And then you look at the guys, I'm just looking at this outside the tops, the guys who are outside the playoffs. Wouldn't shock me at all if Kyle Busch won a race. Ricky Stenhouse is certainly good at Daytona and Atlanta. Ryan Preece has had a lot of speed this year. Michael McDowell has had a lot of speed. Carson Hocevar, Ty Gibbs. Suarez has a reputation for popping up and getting a win. Brad Keselowski's still out there. So you start looking at this and you're like, 2 or 3 of those guys get a win, which that's typically what happens. And don't forget the road courses, who knows what happens there if it's an SVG or somebody else. Like, you start looking at this going, yeah, like 2 or 3 of these guys win a race. Yeah. Then all of a sudden it gets really, really messy. So I've had so many conversations with crew chiefs and drivers over this year about this, kind of going back last year, because we talked so much about Chastain, and they're like, yeah, it's really easy to go points race and keep in your mind of like, yeah, if we just have a good points day here, we're going to be in a good spot. But the one thing I don't have to worry about, the one thing I can do where I don't have to worry about points is go get a win. And if I have an opportunity to get a win and I can punch my ticket, I got to do whatever I can, because then I don't got to worry about anything else. So I get the mentality, just because, I mean, heck, we seen Ryan. It came down to Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. were both top 6 in points, at Daytona, fighting for that spot. So it's just, you can't take anything for granted. And the only way you are assured of a playoff spot is winning a race during the regular season. So you have to be aggressive when the opportunity arises.
I understand why that is a perfectly valid argument based on what we've seen lately since this car came along, but I just don't think that's happening this year. Like, if you look at the way the season is trending, you're having, for the most part, the same group of guys, run up toward the front every week. And unless something happens where there's a ton of stuff that goes nuts, you're going to have, I mean, even the super speedway races, we've had 3 super speedway races. The biggest upset has been Austin Cindric, which isn't really, I mean, the guy's won Daytona 500 before. I guess you could maybe say that Josh Berry winning on at Las Vegas was an upset kind of thing, but he's driving a Penske car essentially, and they've gotten a lot better. So where are these, like, you could say, well, they could win at any week if something goes a certain way, but
Michael McDowell almost did it today. Like Ryan,
but he didn't.
But he almost did. And my point is it's at one point, these guys are going to, the Ryan Preeces, the McDowells, the Hocevars, the Ty Gibbs, like, they continually put themselves in this position. One of them or 2 of them are going to cash in at some point. Like, this is just statistically, this is how it's been. Like, this is how it has been in the next gen era. So I'm playing the odds here, and I'm convinced that there's only going to be 2, maybe 3 at the most playoff points. And I think it's going to be probably 2.
I see. There's right now there's 15 races left, Jordan.
Sure.
And I'm just not, yes, you could have an SVG win on a road course, but I'm telling you, man, I think there's a legit viable path for someone around the Stenhouse range right now, or the Allmendinger range. I mean, AJ Allmendinger is in the playoffs right now.
Absolutely. AJ's had a great year.
He's 15th in points because there's only one. Barry moves the cut line, but Allmendinger's now it is 15th in points going to make the playoffs? No, because there's going to be somebody else, that at least one other person that wins. But I'm saying, like, I think there's a path where 11th or 12th in points could possibly make it. I don't think you're going to have to be 6th or 5th in points to make it this year. So if you are, I mean, those guys, there's like, I don't know, just 8 drivers that are within 30 points of like a potential realistic path. So, you know, why not just try to take what it gives you? Because the alternative, Jordan, is like, when you're not settling for those days and thinking, I have to win, I have to go do this because it's going to move it up. You truly are throwing away so many points. And I know I'm speaking of like a conservative strategy, but like, there's got to be some middle ground of like, okay, I'd love to win this, but when every single person thinks this is my moment, this is my chance, and they all cost themselves so many points, somebody can, you know, do the alternate strategy, just like on a pit road alternate strategy.
But to me, it's not an all-encompassing thing. If I'm looking at the standings right now, and if I'm a Elliott or a Reddick or Byron, I'm going to throw Bubba in that mix and even a Bowman. I'm feeling like, okay, you know, I got to look at the big picture. I'm top 10 in points. I'm feeling okay. Like, you know, even if there are a bunch of winners, I'm still going to probably be in one of those positions to maybe get a transfer on. But if I'm, you know, kind of hovering around that cut line, if I'm a Michael McDowell, I don't know if I'm having my mentality of, I don't know if my team is ready to go out and run consistently good enough to accumulate enough points to beat some of these big dogs. Like that's a big ask. And if I'm a Michael McDowell and I'm in a situation like I am today and I'm running second or first, or, you know, however you want to look at it, I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, second would be great. Second place finish today would be great in the points thing. But in the big picture, though, it may not matter because he's not in a position where he's going to get enough points on a week-to-week basis, I don't think, to where he's going to be good enough to get one of those wild card spots. And so when you're him or you're an Allmendinger or a Stenhouse, like, you got to go for it. You got to be aggressive and go for the win, just because I don't know if your team is good enough on a week-to-week basis to finish well enough to make that matter.
I think one of us, I mean, and it could very well be me, is going to be super wrong on this, sure, obviously, because I'm tricking myself into thinking there's going to be like 4 spots on points open. So
we're not arguing that differently. Like I think there's going to be 2 to 3. It's like it's not like we're having this huge.
That's a big difference. So because of where they would be in the points, right? Because you could be talking about, okay, like if there's 2 spots, you could be talking about, okay, a guy that's like 3rd and a guy that's 6th gets in. All of a sudden, if there's 4 spots, you're like, okay, the guy that's in 12th just got in, right? So I don't know. We'll find out.
It'll be interesting. That's the interesting thing about this, though, and it's easy to Monday morning quarterback this. So I do think that I think we need to give a shout to Spire Motorsports, though, too. Like they are doing a really good job of bringing fast race cars. You know, you look at Carson Osvar wins the pole. Michael McDowell won the pole at Las Vegas. Like Spire Motorsports, 2 poles on 1.5 mile racetracks. Who had that in their bingo board? And so they're doing a good job of building that organization up. And now this is where we always talk about it, though, and is like, great, you've got speed. Now you've got to turn that speed into results. And because that's the thing they're kind of missing right now, where it's like they're running well, they're qualifying well, and you're like, okay, man, okay, this can be a good day. And then something happens and then it doesn't. And that's the next big hurdle for them.
Well, you know, you and I both picked Michael McDowell to make the playoffs. And as this race was going on today, I was thinking, we're going to be able to get on there and be like, see, we told you. But not quite, Jordan. Not quite. I'll have to wait for another day.
Lot of time left. They've been impressive. They need execution is the really big thing with that organization right now across the board. They just aren't running a complete green flag to checkered flag race. Yeah.
I mean, to your point though, Hocevar getting the pole was super impressive. It just shows their speed. You know, are they Hendrick light, whatever you want to call them? They clearly have an alliance, as we've discussed. They're taking advantage of that. So I don't know. But as you said, it's so hard to win these races. You've got to put the whole complete thing together. Can they do that? Can they do that in enough time? Yeah. I don't know. What else do you want to talk about from this race or this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, about Brad Keselowski season, we talk about guys and points and everything like that. It's just like he's got, I think I count 8 finishes, a 26th or worse now, and 11 races. Like that's crazy. Like just anything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And it's just that is a team that is certainly in must-win mode. Like if you're going to make the playoffs, you're not doing it on points. You're going to have to go win a race. And the thing of it is, though, I don't know if they've got the speed right now. That's worrisome to me. I just haven't seen enough from this team. And it's interesting to me is you look at the 17 team, you look at the 60 team. Those teams at RFK have been pretty good, especially the 17 team. And the 6 team has not been. I don't think it's been really anywhere close to that level.
I mean, if I told you that after 11 races that Brad Keselowski would be 44 points behind Ty Dillon in points and 1 point better than rookie Riley Herbst in the points.
Crazy.
I mean, it's inconceivable in a lot of ways because you think, just as we talked about with like a Chastain, right? Like, hey, Brad Keselowski being a veteran, he's going to grind out the finishes. He's going to, whatever he's got to do, like he's going to know how to do it. And it's been this snowball kind of, what an absolute disaster of a year.
No, it's been he's 5th, 36, 36 teams, charters, 36 drivers have ran every single race this year. Brad is 5th worst in points. And the thing of it is too, is looking at the qualifying, it's not like they're not even qualifying well. He's had one top 15 qualifying effort this year, and that was at Atlanta, and he qualified 9th. So it's not even like they're doing well. They're setting themselves up. It's like, okay, they qualified well, we can go from there. It's like there's just nothing going right for this team right now.
Man, unbelievable. But as you said, I mean, I think everybody still knows that if they put it all together in one given day. Yep.
Other thing I want to hit on too is I think this stretch we're gonna have excluding North Wilkesboro because it's a non-points race. Texas, Kansas, Charlotte, Nashville, all consecutively. I think this stretch here is we're gonna have a really strong indicator of who's a pretender and who's a contender. And
throw Michigan in there too after Nashville.
Yeah, I thought I had it on my list. I thought I said that. I'm sorry, but you're right. Michigan certainly. I feel like these next 5 races we're gonna have a really strong idea of who's legit and who's not, and who's the guys that you're gonna kind of point at and go, this guy is the championship contender. So is this guy, and not so much. So we're going to have a really good picture over these next few weeks.
Jordan, one thing that people were still talking about here at the track, a topic of conversation. Rant? Well, not my rant specifically, but the topic of the rant, the run what you brung race. So I think we can clean some of that up a little bit. Not that I changed my mind, but knowing a little bit more than just your reporting, excellent reporting, by the way. But obviously, I didn't plan on losing my crap at that moment after hearing your reasons. But now we've heard more, right? We got to hear Denny's explanation on actions detrimental. We got to hear what Tommy Baldwin said from a team perspective on door bumper clear, and Kyle Busch what he thought. We got to hear about Dale Jr.'s perspective of that, and how as an Xfinity team owner, if they just said go run what you brung race, like they wouldn't have done that. But there's certain things that they would have liked to do. We also heard hauler talk, right, with Mike Ford, and he completely disputed what Denny Hamlin said. Denny Hamlin had said, hey, it's going to take $2 million because we would destroy chassis, which are $300,000 each. That's $900,000. And we'd have to come up with all these parts and manufacture all these parts, which would, R&D and all that stuff. Mike Ford then says, well, hey, from a NASCAR perspective, we were never going to let you do that. We were never going to let you, come up with this, and this, and destroy your chassis and modify it. We were going to make you use single source parts. But here's my thing, right? And this is where I do understand the team's perspective a little bit of it. Let's say NASCAR said, yeah, okay, we were never going to let you do that. We were going to make you use current next gen parts. Okay, but we're not going to inspect it.
Yeah.
So that means that the teams will then cheat. They will then go, they're like, well, they're not going to look. So we're going to have to, now that's one perspective, right? Another is that, I think there was a lot of different information out there. Like there was a lot, Kyle Busch on DBC said, well, I heard they were going to let us open up the engines, and that was not on the table. So I talked to a lot of people in the garage this week. Some people talked to me more than me talking to them with their ideas or their feedback on it. Some team people say there is stuff we could do if you just let us do these small 3 things. We think it could make a difference. But other people are like, here's the problem. Again, like, let's say all the teams were allowed to do whatever, and they found something that worked for them. I was told by a team engineer, like, do you think we're going to go then tell NASCAR what worked and then tell them to tell all the other teams what we figured out? Like, to be like, hey, everybody, this makes the cars drive great. Everybody go do this with your cars. Like, so there's so many other things. The one argument that I do firmly reject about this entire conversation is people, and this is one of the things that made me blow my top when you brought this up last week, is, well, this isn't good because, the big teams are going to outspend the small teams, and the small teams won't be as competitive if this happens. And, it could make it look bad, this competitive disparity and all stuff. And I'm like, so like every year of NASCAR history before the next gen car, like, are you talking about the entirety of stock car racing history and motorsports history, that big teams with more resources are able to outrun the small teams and go faster? Like, the people that use that as their argument are making the argument for why this car exists. And the people that are saying the same thing as like what Denny was saying, in a sense of like, oh, well, now we're going to have to spend so much money. That is also making the argument for why this car exists. Yeah. So if you don't like the car, don't do that. Like, don't make that your argument for whoever's out there and wants to argue against this, because you're just making the actual reason for why the next gen is already here. And so if you're saying, oh, what about the small teams? What about this? Let's not come up with some better stuff, because I've heard some better stuff out there, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have lost my crap publicly in front of, like,
but you said about like every one of your rants is like, okay, let's step back off the ledge a little bit and let's think about this, with a bigger perspective. But that's why we love you, and that's why the rants are so good. And please don't ever change, because God, it was amusing, and we all thank you for that. So listen, I said this last week, I'll say it again. Like, there was multiple people with bigger teams who said the same thing. We're like, we can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves. Which, again, and I talked to people on the NASCAR side, and they're like, echoing your point, this is the next gen car. This is why you should be thanking us, because we are preventing you from spending yourself into oblivion. And so, because we know that you can't help yourself. So it is what I don't want to see. I wish this would have happened. I think that this is worth revisiting, and hopefully with a longer runway than they had, because the teams did not have a long way.
But there was a lot of gray area they could have done quickly, I was told this weekend. I was told by team people, there was like, if they had said, again, I don't want to, tip proprietary, but they were like, if you let us work in this area, this area, and this area, and they had just done these 3 things, we all probably could have made a lot of gains. We probably could have learned some things. We probably could have given great feedback on what to do with this car. And so I don't know why it was such an extreme, like why it came off as either you do the whole run what you brung thing, or we're not doing it at all. Like, couldn't somebody, I think Dale Jr. on his podcast had perfectly reasonable arguments for, like, well, why don't they just, regulate what they can do?
I would like to see it happen. I think they should. I think it's great. I think it's a missed opportunity. And I hope that now that this door has been opened, I hope a year from now they can figure this out, and they can sit down with teams in the offseason and give them even a little bit more longer runway and say, okay, what are the 3 or 4 things that you guys are okay doing? And let's figure this out.
Here's one thing, Jordan, that I feel like I talk around it a lot, and I don't coherently make this point enough. So I want to, and several people made it again to me this week, and I feel like it's almost, sometimes it's like taken for granted, but I need to say this, right? It's not just like, let's say we're talking about short tracks, right? Oh, how come they can't get the car driving better on short tracks? It's not even necessarily about that. What it is it's about all the cars going the exact same speed. Yeah. And that's why you can't pass. So we could be saying, well, give them more horsepower or give them this or let them do this or take off the underbody. But as long as it's the same for everybody and everybody's in the same box, you will get into a mode where you can't pass each other because you're all going the exact same speed. Now, the reason people want more horsepower or a narrower tire or whatever it is if you are able to burn your stuff up, right? Like you could maybe, if you had the same car, you could burn your stuff up because you didn't take care of your equipment enough, and then you could create comers and goers. But as long as you have everybody in the same box and it's so tightly regulated, it doesn't matter what exactly they do to the car or the run what you brung or whatever it is. The run what you brung itself would create disparity enough that you'd have a wild race because you'd have some people hit on it, some people don't. So you'd have people passing, right? But once everybody was then given the same rules again, that would all go away. So that's what the entire conversation about this car is on every track except places like Kansas, hopefully, where there's still enough ability to race and have different lanes and overcome all that stuff. But this is sort of the box we're in. Now, I do think that, like in IndyCar, for instance, right? IndyCar is a spec car, and yet the teams have there's a pretty large disparity in some cases, right? Like they're not all running right together.
Yeah, there's not much action right now in IndyCar, though, to be honest with you.
Well, but I'm just saying we don't hear like because there's areas that they're allowed to work in on the car. So maybe there's certain areas NASCAR could open up and say, okay, teams, yeah, we've been making you buy single source parts here, but you know what? Now we will let you mess with the shocks. Okay, everybody, you could build your own shocks. Now, will that increase the cost like crazy for the big teams and all this stuff and research what they can do with the shocks? I'm sure it would, right? But like, at least you could give them some sort of disparity now. If you're giving the same exact cars, parts, pieces to every single team, and you get on a track where you're blocked behind somebody, and aero is such a big thing, it doesn't matter exactly what you're doing to the car. It's a point that many people have made to me. I feel like we dance around that a lot, but I just want to say that
it's not even, it extends to tires too. If there's exact same tire fall off, everything is the same, then it all equals out. So it doesn't, then it makes it harder to create comers and goers. And that's the whole problem here. At the end of the day, like, parity is a great thing. It's great when you've got small teams that, you have a Spire Motorsports, and let's be careful how we label Spire Motorsports a small team, but like, you know what I mean? When it's good when you have the haves and the have-nots, and you kind of can blend them together a little bit and that kind of thing. But it's good. You look at the heyday of NASCAR and how we're like, oh, we had comers and goers and passing guys. You had a lot of cars that sucked. You had a lot of slow cars. So you had a lot of traffic to work through. And so that was another skill set of like managing traffic and how to work through that. And so because the disparity, the discrepancy between the big guys and the small guys was so big, you have this big gulf, like you were going to get side-by-side action. You were going to get all of these things. So it's just, this is the part of it. And this is the era that it is. And then you throw in, different rules like stage breaks and lucky dogs and wave rounds and all of these things of like adding more people back on the lead lap. This is how the NASCAR is like this era is, it's trying to make it as competitive and even across the board as possible. And that is a good thing on a lot of fronts, but it also, for the points you laid out, can be a challenge as well.
Kansas is next week. Can't wait. I think we're at the 1 year anniversary of the number one race ever in my poll, the closest finish in NASCAR history, and just a absolute awesome race from start to finish. That wasn't just the finish, but it was.
What was the percentage for the poll, by the way, for that?
95.8%.
How is that not 100%? Unless you're Chris Buescher. No, like, seriously, like that. Even if you're Chris Buescher or the RFK or like, that's a great race. Come on, seriously.
You're never.
I know.
You can't. getting 100% on the internet. But
it's mad.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't know that will ever be topped, but hopefully it'll be an amazing race again, because Kansas, I think, is, sneakily the best track in NASCAR. So I'm very excited to see the race there. Hopefully it'll be amazing. One thing to clean up, just a little bit of a teaser as well. We didn't talk about the Ross Chastain block last week at after Talladega, right? Now I know it was a topic for a lot of other people. Denny talked about it on his podcast. I just want a little programming alert, I guess. I have a 12 questions with Ross coming out on The Athletic this week, and I asked him about that moment. What was he trying to do? It was a completely different answer than I thought. He wasn't trying to block, basically. He was trying to get in line, he said. He was trying to blend up into line. He wasn't trying to make a reckless move. He said he went into the whole explanation. So hopefully when that comes out, people will check that out, because I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. They're going to be like, wait, what? This was the explanation for this? Oh, okay. Because that was a big talking point of everybody assuming that he had one motivation, and that wasn't actually correct, according to him. So surprise.
Look forward to reading that on The Athletic this week.
Yep. All right. And you know what else is coming out this week? Full Speed Season 2. So I'm going to have a review of that. Are you excited to watch that on Netflix?
I'm looking forward to it. I've heard some good things.
All right. I mean, I wish it had come out before the season. I wish it wasn't May when we're talking about we're looking at last year's playoffs. Yeah. It's like, I wish it had come out in February, but I guess beggars can't be choosers. But
so speaking of things going on The Athletic this week, 2 years ago at Kansas, you remember Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson on pit road? Remember the security guard, Stan, who broke up the fight? I talked to Stan, I talked to Alan, who are kind of NASCAR's lead security teams and often find themselves in the middle of these scrums, about how they navigate these post-race altercations and how they manage it. Really an interesting conversation about that, and how they really try to talk people off the ledge, and they're okay with drivers having a confrontation. I've kind of learned that drivers get one move. Now, whether that's a grab or a punch or a slap or whatever your one move is, you get one move. You don't get two. And a couple other little interesting tidbits, which I don't want to give it away, but there was something in there I learned, and I shared it with some NASCAR folks, and a lot of the NASCAR folks didn't even realize it as well. And it was like, whoa, that's really interesting.
What a tease.
So that as well. So that's that coming on The Athletic this week as well. And then just a couple things from this race I just want to mention really quick. Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, both got top 10 finishes. Good job by Legacy Motor Club, top 10s from both drivers on an intermediate racetrack. Austin Dillon, 3 straight top 10s now. So he's fresh. Yeah. And then I know pre-race can be really goofy and everything. Did you hear the national anthem?
I heard it was fantastic, but I couldn't hear it.
Okay. So fantastic. But the gentleman who sang it, 100 years old.
I saw that, and he must be very well known around this area, because when they said his name, like people, there was a huge cheer. I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying. Maybe they just said he's 100 years old, and that's why they were cheering.
World War II survivor.
He's a veteran, right?
Veteran from Iwo Jima. Like, incredible. Like,
wow.
I mean, one of the best anthems I've ever heard. Like, just awesome. 100 years old, knocking it out of the park.
Wow, that's awesome. That's great. All right, everybody. Well, chaotic race, treacherous Texas, but I don't know what we would call the K alliteration for Kansas. I can't think of one. So I will just leave it at that before I screw this ending up.
Crushes it.
Crushing. Yeah, we're going to struggle with that. Anyway, everybody, thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you next time on The Teardown. See you, everybody.